Friday, December 4th, 2015, Cinema Cycle, or should I say Cinema Refrigerator. 32 degrees outside. Oh, got the kerosene heater working. It's so cold, I've got 2 pairs of socks on because it's not warm. Hey, it's the end of the week, and it's also DVD day here in the Cinema Cycle. And Random Media Generator has provided me with a classic. Oh yeah, James Burke, Connections. This is the first DVD of a documentary. It's about 5 DVDs long. I've seen this before. It was on PBS once upon a time. Probably one of the best documentaries I think I've ever seen, up there with Carl Sagan's Cosmos and a few others. Found this whole collection in the thrift store one day. I just scarfed it up without even thinking about it. If you've never seen this documentary, I strongly suggest that you do. It's one of those documentaries that if I'd had children, and I haven't, oh, poor me, I would require them to watch this as soon as they can understand it. Just like Cosmos and a couple of other of the famous documentaries out there. This documentary will really expand your mind. It has to do with how what we do affects others and therefore promotes change throughout the ages. If you ever want to know why you have a nut and a bolt to hold things together, if you ever want to know why your houses are square with pitched roofs, this will explain that kind of thing to you. It shows how we have evolved as a species with supposedly the the randomly meaningless things that have happened throughout time. Some guy does something in 1750, another guy does something in 1810, another guy does something in 1970, and they all somehow congeal to make something in 1990. It's that kind of film. So, good way to end the week. Let's check out James Burke and the Connections That Bind Us All. About 3 minutes into the first episode, a little bit of reality check there. James Burke is explaining how the series is going to go and what he's going to be talking about. And as he does so, he's on top of the World Trade Center in Manhattan. That's a little creepy. A couple things about this series. A few comments. One thing, it's a bit dated because one of the things that's so entertaining is James Burke, who's a very eloquent presenter, but his dress is all polyester bell-bottom pants and a jacket with huge lapels. So he's obviously straight out of the 70s, which is when this was filmed, I believe, 70s and 80s. The other thing I've noticed is that this was filmed. This is not video. This is prior to the whole concept of digital media. So this is actually done with film cameras, and the picture quality is a little faded. The colors don't pop. The sound isn't really good. I mean, it's good. It's good to watch, but not what you'd expect by today's standards. That said, fascinating show. I mean, it really makes you question a lot of the things that you've learned in life and where we've been as a culture and a people and where we're going. Okay, credits on episode number 1 are rolling. I'm going to make one comment here, which really becomes evident if you really like to watch documentaries and you're really into media, and that is that this is a really well done show, particularly because it was all written. It was all actually acted out. He's going back in history, back to ancient Egypt, back to 1950s, 1920s, 1820s, whatever. And he's showing you little vignettes like, here's a person in the Civil War doing something. And they actually reenact it. They actually got the person there, they dress them properly, they shoot them on location. And so, it's not just like a classroom lecture. He's actually taking a history book and then recreating history and then walking you through it, which is not cheap. It's expensive to do this kind of thing, even back then. Today it would be extremely expensive, although you can do special effects today. But what you realize is that as a series, this whole show is extremely well thought out, and it's written very well by Mr. Burke. So in that aspect, it's just a fascinating thing to watch. One of the just giddy things about watching this show is that he actually goes to all these places and he actually shows you the inventions or the places where certain things took place in the past. And he actually has from museums or recreations of these devices that scientists, astronomers, whatever, were fiddling with in, say, 1500 or 1300 in the Dark Ages. And you kind of come to realize, like, oh my God, it's like, here's a stick with a piece of sulfur on it that a guy rubbed his finger on and eventually made electricity. He didn't realize it at the time, but he wrote it down. And then 100 years later, somebody else read it, like, oh, I'm going to go look into that. And, and then 100 years after that, you've got an electric light bulb. But it all goes back to a stick with a piece of sulfur on it. And that's what I think most people don't realize, is that everything you have, your cell phone, your television, your car, the electric light switch in your house, they all came from somewhere. They all came from somebody just like scratching their head going, what happens if I do this? To a twig and a stick and a piece of water. And then it just, goes on. And what you realize is back in the ancient times, 2000 BC or whatever, they had just as much invention and as much thought process going on as we do now. It's just back then it would take 100 years for an idea or a thought to bear fruit in some meaningful way. Now in the modern world it takes 6 months. So it's all just this long progression, and it just keeps compressing as we go farther into the future.